thing with ayahuasca is you can, you can dive in as much as you want, or you can sort of beat around the edges a little bit as well. But I went in pretty deep up there.
Morning, y'all. This is just good wishes from Austin, Texas, keeping it weird with, McConaughey and Willie Nelson and now Elon Musk. But just a big thanks for this mud water deliciousness. Keeps me going. I work in fitness, and there's nothing more in alignment with really how I think and live my life. I'm about to go and make some of that goodness right now, and I usually, try and get some morning sunshine in, a little walk with the pups. I wish I could send pictures of them to you instead of this dull recording, but yeah, I mean, it's just a really nice feeling to know that I don't have to rush down and make a cup of coffee, in anticipation of a headache or something of that sort. It's just a real blessing. Mud, lotus grows from the mud. What can I say, right? Thanks, guys.
Hey, Christy, thanks for sending that in. Glad that you have kicked coffee. I've been doing a real deep dive into the relationship between coffee and fractured sleep. There's a guy named Matt Walker, who some of you might be familiar with. We're trying to get him on the podcast. He's a sleep expert, and he said, if you plot the rise in Starbucks coffee houses over the past 30 years, and then plot the rise in sleep deprivation over the past 30 years, the lines are very similar. So we have a psychoactive drug, caffeine, that does have some benefits to it when taken at the correct dose, but most of modern society is overdosing on it, and it is bleeding into deep sleep, which is Mother Nature's best effort at a magic pill. So, Christy, I hope that you are sleeping better off of coffee, and I hope the rest of you get a good night's sleep tonight. Before we get going into this podcast, I want to let you know that we just released the Trends with Benefits newspaper. This is going to be a quarterly newspaper that you can get on our site for 25 cents. Psychedelics, adventure, well-being, interview with the MAPS founder, Dr. Rick Doblin, Dr. Christopher Ryan, the co-author of Sex at Dawn. We have crossword puzzles, comics, all kinds of fun stuff. So you can head over to MUDWTR.com, click the shop link, scroll to the bottom, and you will see the Trends with Benefits newspaper. And you can get it for, yes, the whopping price of 25 cents. It was really fun to create, and I hope that you all take the time to check it out. It's a good fuck you to our technology-addicted world. A reminder to slow down and enjoy your morning. Smell the flowers, listen to the birds, and look up at the sky, because it will make your day better. This episode of the podcast is with Jamie Mitchell. Jamie is a longtime surfing buddy of mine. For those of you who don't know, my name is Kyle Thiermann, host this podcast, also big into surfing, and sometimes I have some of the world's best on, because I'm privileged enough to rub shoulders with some of these crazy athletes like Jamie. Jamie is the 10-time Molokai to Oahu paddleboarding champion. Molokai is an island in Hawaii. It is a 32-mile open ocean paddle race that happens each year from Molokai to the island of Oahu, and Jamie won it 10 times. He is the greatest paddleboarder in the history of the sport. Not only that, he then switched from paddleboarding, dominating that water sport, to big wave surfing, and went into it 1,000% and very quickly became one of the top big wave surfers in the world, traveling around the world to waves like Mavericks, Jaws, Nazare, And it has a very unique, I guess, makeup as an athlete. Someone who can win a grueling race 10 times and then make the shift into one of the more terrifying sports that exist, in my opinion, and do it really well, have a unique brain. So we talked a lot about that, as well as Jamie's more recent foray into psychedelics and ayahuasca, which I'm happy to say more athletes, intellectuals, well-respected people are coming out about their own experience with these drugs, and that they are not necessarily the demons that mainstream media has made them out to be, but in fact, they are very powerful tools that should be taken and treated with reverence and respect, and can have significant benefits for the human mind and soul when taken in these contexts. So I hope that you enjoy this conversation with my friend Jamie Mitchell. It was recorded out on the island of Oahu. And for anyone else who wants to send in a voice memo, you can record it on your phone. Let us know who you are, where you're listening from. Keep it under a minute and send it to podcast@mudwtr.com. And if we play it, we will send you a free tin of mud. So just keep it under a minute. Let us know what it looks like where you are. We're trying to get the community involved here, and email it to podcast@mudwtr.com. That's it for now. I hope that you all enjoy this conversation with 10-time paddleboarding champion, Jamie Mitchell. Boom, boom.
That sounds. What is it different when you got three like me, or do you only have two sets of headphones? Is that why, man?
Just two sets of headphones. Yeah. Here we are. I'm still shivering from the cold plunge.
Dude, I was gonna put my long pants on, but I felt like a wuss, and then I come over and you've got on mine.
Dude, I've got my long pants and a jacket on. I mispacked so badly for this trip. I brought 2 t-shirts and 3 jackets. I don't know how that happened.
Coming to Hawaii you can underestimate.
You can underestimate and just mispack. I've always been a mispacker. So here I am. I've got my pants, got my jacket. You're on the cold plunges, man.
I am. I love it.
How long you been on that?
Probably the last year, solid. Yeah, I mean, I every time I got a chance to do it, I'd love to do it, but doing it somewhere else and then having your own setup is 2 different things. But it's just what got me into it when I decided to do the Channel Island, the 7 crossings paddle. I was able to get a little bit of backing from some people to help me to train for it, because I was like, if I'm going to train for this, I'm older, I've had shoulder surgery, I need to get massage each week, there's a bunch of things I needed to do to be able to even think about paddling that distance over that amount of days. So one of the things was I said I want to get a sauna for recovery. And then, so I was able to get the sauna, and then I was doing sauna and just cold showers. And then I was like, well, now I want to get an ice bath. And so me and a buddy of mine, we've been talking about it, and he found the old one out the back of a shop here in Wailua, and we went and bought it for like $200. And it's actually served its purpose for about 6 months, and it was just too raggedy and old. And then I was like, well, I'm just going to buy my own. And
for people who don't know, what was the 7 crossing that you did?
Yeah, so that was, when was that? It seemed like a lifetime ago again. September, a couple of years ago. It was, I decided to work with the USC Wrigley Institute on Catalina. and they work on sustainability of food, water, energy, and waste, and they do that out in Catalina. It's a pretty cool pretty cool little organization. And so I'd wanted to do paddle either Hawaiian Island chain or something like that, and then I got chatting to a friend of mine, Zach Porter, and he knew the guys at Wrigley Institute, and he's like, hey, maybe we can do something for, because I wanted to do it, but I'm like, if I'm going to do it, I would want to do it for a good cause too, you know. So anyway, long story short, we pieced together this plan, got together with the Wrigley Institute, and they were obviously into it because I was going to be able to raise awareness for what they were doing. And so we put it together, called it the 7 Crossings, and I basically paddled the 8 Channel Islands on a 18-foot prone paddleboard, and it was 170 miles, and I did it over 5 days. Yeah.
And where would you sleep?
We had a boat.
You had a boat?
Yeah, we had 2 boats. We had a really cool, massive, big mothership boat, and then another sort of fishing style boat, which because we documented it all. We have like Phantom cameras, red cameras, drones, the whole deal, and so we had that and a safety crew, and then I had a lifeguard, Eric Ching from Huntington Beach Lifeguards. We had a little a dinghy. He followed me the whole way too, and yeah, so we did it over. I did the top islands, the top 3 in one day, the first day, and then I did the rest of them. So from Anacapa across to Santa Barbara the next day, which was 40 miles. Then Santa Barbara out to I can't now. I'm forgetting to St. Nicholas, which was 30-something miles. Then I was from San Nicolas to San Clemente was 50-something miles, and then the last day was Clemente back to Catalina, which was another 30-something miles. And yeah, it was cool, man. It was
is that photo that you have up in your kitchen of you going to the Channel Islands?
Yeah,
it's that blown up one. It's it's like you from behind and one of the islands is in the foreground.
Yeah, my wife got that blown up for my birthday. So,
awesome.
Yeah, it's cool. We got some really cool images from that whole trip, and yeah, man, it was an awesome adventure. Just to go from the Channel Islands and just get out of my comfort zone. You know, like it was pretty scary. Like, you know, I'll be honest, I was pretty scared of the shark situation out there, you know, and there's a seal cannery on the top northern Channel Islands, so a lot of people were worried out there because it's just great white territory, you know, and so once I got through the first day, those first couple of island chains, I got a bit more comfortable, and I sort of let go about worrying, because I'm like, you decided to do this, Jamie. You wanted to do this, and like you can't be worried you're going to get chomped by a shark the whole time. Like it's going to be a horrible time. Right.
Will you talk to yourself out there? Like that kind of conversation inside your head? A
little bit at the start. Yeah. I mean, it's just so, like, I remember we went out, we left Huntington and motored out the night before, and woke up in the morning and we're out there, and it was just the first thing we do is we see this whale swimming in near the shore where I'm about to start paddling, and it was just an abundance of sea life. It was just like alive, you know, and just paddling off that island in the 7 o'clock in the morning, and it's just crystal clear, no wind. I'm like, oh man, like I'm just making this big splash. I'm this big, you know. But then, like I said, like once I sort of got past that first little crossing, and I was like, I'm going to enjoy this. Like I'm not doing this to be scared and to be worried about if I'm going to get hit by a great white, you know, even though it was a good chance. But I was just like, oh yeah. And once I let go, it was actually really cool. I just started to enjoy the the scenery and coming into all the different islands, and they all had that little bit of different look and feel to them, and it was. I mean, it was tough, but
was it tough physically to pull that off?
It was just the back to back to the first day, the first 3 islands was only about 18 miles, like 6 miles each one, and then it went. Like I said, it went from there. It went 44 miles back to. It went 44 miles, 32, 55, 32. Like,
how long does it take you to paddle the 44-mile one? For instance?
I was averaging about 5 miles an hour. So the 44 was a bit over 8 hours. The 50 mile was 10. So I was, and that's how I trained. I just trained to like cruise at like 5 miles an hour. So yeah, so like 50 miles was 10 hours, or 30 miles was about 6 hours. And so yeah, it was, it ended up being around about 100 and I think by the time it was all said and done, I think it was about 172 miles I'd paddled over 5 days.
What was it like for you getting back into paddle mode?
Yeah, it was interesting. It was, it took me a while I knew that I couldn't afford any injury, like any setback, because I hadn't paddled for a long time. And I didn't give myself that much time to get ready. I only gave myself about 4 or 5 months. So it was just a matter of just really getting into it slowly. Like I would walk down to Sunset Point and just paddle for an hour. And I'd do that a couple of times, 2 to 3 times a week for the first month, just to get my knees, my neck, everything back to feeling normal without injuring something or sort of cranking something where I had to take time off. And then I started once my body started feeling good and my shoulders and everything, I would crank it up to like 2 hours, and then slowly all of a sudden I was doing 5-6 hours on the weekend. But I wasn't overtraining. I just knew that if I could get my body like lubricated back up and get everything moving and everything, that I would be okay. And just understanding that I had to get to that 5 mile an hour pace. And that's what I put on my mind. I was like, if I can average 5 miles an hour, the 40 miles is going to take me 8 hours. The 50 mile day should take me 10. And that's okay, you know? And it worked out perfectly. I really did average right around 5 miles an hour. And to be honest, it was tough, but I actually felt really strong the whole way. Like it was mentally tough, and my body was sore, obviously, but as in, like just mechanically and stuff, my body
felt good.
Yeah, I felt good, dude, and I was really surprised. Everything was super simple. I was just, I ate dates and drank just some water and Liquid IV. It's the company that I like for my hydration. And
do you had an IV in you?
No.
It's called Liquid IV.
The company's called
Liquid IV.
Yeah, it's called Liquid IV, but it's a great blend, and it's the stuff that I like to use for hydration.
Yeah.
And I just kept it really simple. And
you would eat dates. That was pretty much it.
Yeah, dates. I'd have a nice big breakfast, and like we talked earlier, I can eat pretty. So I would have like nearly a double breakfast. I'd have eggs, avocado, like scrambled eggs, avocado, spinach, and then I'd have some cereal with like goji berries, chia seeds, and I would sort of spread that out in the morning before I paddled, and then during the paddle, I basically would just have some dates and water, and the Liquid IV is real simple.
I think I mentioned to you that I did my first endurance running race just recently. Did 43 miles through the California coast. It was the first time I had done anything like that. And I had never run more than 10 miles before that, and I'm not a paddler, so the whole idea of endurance racing was so foreign to me.
Yeah.
And on that run, I got it, because before that I was like, oh, This just seems hard and boring. But then I felt it. I felt myself kick into a new gear that is very difficult to describe, but felt akin to a psychedelic trip.
Yeah. Yeah, you get to a place that's it's hard to get to until maybe unless you take some sort of drug or a psychedelic, because it's your body and your mind goes somewhere that you have to let go of the pain and be at one with it. And sometimes you go through, they say you it's cliche, you hit the pain barrier and you break through the wall and you come out the other side, but it's true. You can do that. You can be in a horrible pain and just having the worst time ever, and then you can break through that and all of a sudden have a second win and feel amazing.
Right.
And there's something about just setting yourself a goal and a challenge and, putting mind over matter and getting through that and coming out the other side that's really gratifying and satisfying.
So satisfying.
Yeah.
No, I did the run with my friend, and towards the end, we were struggling. Like, we were both at a point where if we made the wrong move, our legs were going to cramp up and we're going to have to be carried out, right? But on the last mile, we both got this second win and we started speeding up and the finish line was at this old saloon, like in inland California, made it over this mountain range. And I was like, where the hell is this energy coming from?
Yeah.
Like, you were able to find something that you didn't know that you had inside of you. And you realize how much more powerful your mind is than you know.
Yeah, it's the most powerful thing we have. And the people that are able to work out how to use that as a weapon or use it to their advantage is a better way to put it probably. They work it out because, I look at, paddling that 55 miles, like the 40 mile from Anacapa to Santa Barbara was officially the longest I'd ever paddled. And then 2 days later I paddled 50. And then in between that, in and after that, I paddled 2 Molokais. So and I hadn't paddled for 8 years, and I had, some shoulder surgery and stuff like that. So just knowing experience and just training your mind and knowing that you can do it and pushing yourself, and it's amazing what the body and the mind can do when you really set yourself to it. It's incredible, and that's why it's so addicting. People, whether it's you going to the other level of ultra marathons, or it's just people that doing normal marathons or long distance paddle races or whatever it may be, or bike races or Hawaiian Ironmans. It's that once you do it, you see those people that becomes their addiction. They just love the endurance, and love going out in the week. And there's something about going out and going, hey, let's go for a 5-hour bike ride or whatever it is, and you get a bunch of buddies and go out and do that and come back and you feel really fucking good about yourself.
Yeah.
And that to me, that's amazing. It's why wouldn't you want to feel good about yourself? And you're healthy, you're bringing your buddies along and you're helping everyone out. And after a while, it becomes not that hard. It becomes your normal.
That's it, right? It's same with the cold plunges. You do it the first time and it's so hard, but you start to do it, and after the third, fourth, fifth time, it becomes normal. Then after the sixth, seventh, eighth time, you start to crave it.
Yeah, and then there's times too where you don't want to do it, or you start to think about it, and you're like, man, it's gonna be cold, and you're like, why is it harder tonight than it was last night? And then, but that's just, again, forcing yourself or just telling yourself to do it and knowing that you're gonna feel better afterwards. And that's the power of the mind. It's just like, you're gonna feel better.
Right.
Like, so, like, it's been awesome having you here the last week because we've been doing it together and we've been having buddies over and we've been having sauna ice parties, you know. But like when you're gone, like poor old Jamie's going to be by himself.
Right. Yeah, no, it makes it a lot easier.
You know,
when you're...
but I do. My wife comes out sometimes and she doesn't even know I'm out there and she like looks at me and she's like, what are you doing? And it's just, I'm just down there shivering in the ice bath by myself at 8:30 at night, you know. And she's like, well, I know why you do it because you're crazy, but but it's just part of my routine now. I love it. I think the benefits are well documented and known, and even if it wasn't for that, I go a lot off feel. For me, I'm like, you could tell me it's great for me, horrible for me, whatever, but if I feel good afterwards and it makes me feel better and feel more clear-minded, I don't need to know the benefits.
Right.
I know because I just feel better.
Right.
You know, but it's placebo effect, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. I just know that when I do that, I feel freaking amazing.
Well, you need to trust that. I was thinking about that the other night. I think in the sauna you were telling me about how from a pretty early age you were good at sports, and you were like, I don't know what to tell you, dude. Like I was just good at sports. Like from when I could walk, like I would excel, and so you have a lot of natural gifts. But then through that, you've taken this path where you've had to develop a really unique relationship with your body. A lot of people, they have, they'll do their workouts, they'll push themselves they'll like do enough to stay in shape, but very few people know what their limit is and get comfortable pushing past that limit. And it becomes, I think, it's a new and more personal relationship with your body. And I was thinking, a lot of what your life has been dedicated to is getting to know yourself on the body level more deeply and intensely, whether it's through paddling or big wave surfing.
Yeah.
So the fact that you do what feels good for you makes a lot of sense because you're fluent in that language.
Yeah, and I you just mature, and when you're younger, you can beat your body up, and you tend to overtrain, and you get injuries, but then you recover faster because you're younger, and but with endurance sports, you have to. I feel like you have to listen to your body a little more because it's real easy to. Those long repetition, like if it's running, it's real easy to run your body into a really bad injury when you're doing long distance stuff or endurance stuff. Like for example, your shoulders and stuff. If you don't listen to your shoulders and you're paddling and swimming and doing all that, sooner or later you're gonna be down the track of like 6 shoulder surgeries, and that's not good, And so I. Recently I've just really found that less is more. Just training smarter, not harder sometimes is a better track. The sauna, the ice, the recovery. Technology is so good, and the nutrition and the CBDs and the oils, and there's just so much good stuff out there,
right.
To be able to help you, to go hard, recover, and keep going. But you got to also listen to your ego and not let it get a hold of you too much. And so for me now, it's like I can go train with people and. If it's not something that I'm comfortable in, I'm very happy just to sit back and just watch and learn and be along for the ride. And then there's certain things that I know I can do do well at and excel at. But yeah, for me now at training, I really enjoy training for fun. I enjoy training with people, like-minded people. I probably don't get that full-on feeling of like pushing myself that hard these days. The Channel Islands was something that I was able to do that, you know, like is in like a consistent, like day after day, wake up, go to sleep, wake up sore, know you got to paddle another 8 hours. And, you know, that for me, that was, you know, that's more mental than physical.
Have there been any events that allowed you to soften around your ego? Because you said that learning to train smarter, not harder, learning to train less, ultimately comes back to your ego a lot of the time, right? And being able to listen to yourself. Were there any events or things that you've done that have allowed you to shift that perspective?
I just think, as in like something that's sort of like where I was able to like just sit back and know I didn't have to try and win, sort of thing, or
I don't know what comes to mind for you.
no, not really. I mean, I just think that I think in my older age now, it's like I think doing, instead of racing for me now, to challenge myself, like I'd love to paddle the Hawaiian Island chains, you know, something like that again. So for me to challenge myself in pursuing something in that, like challenging, it's not necessarily about winning anymore. You know, if I was to try and go and win a paddleboard race, the ego comes back, and I would have to sacrifice more than I'm willing to sacrifice now with my family, because I would be being selfish. You know, I've already went and won every paddleboard race you can win in the world, and stand up, prone, whatever it is. And so that would be feeding my ego, and I don't want to go there, right? You know, because I would, it would just, it's just,
you don't want to see me when I'm angry.
It's just, just, you know, but do I enjoy challenging myself? For sure. And if I can do that, and along the way raise some awareness for some good causes, or raise some money for something along the way, and also not stroke my ego so much, but like challenge my mental side, that's more what I'm into these days, you know. And that's what big wave surfing is to me now too, is it's more the mental challenge of a personal challenge, and having to go out and try and stroke into the largest wave, and, you know, feel like I'm beating my chest and trying to do that, you know. So that there's been a definite shift in my mindset in not just the paddling, but big wave as well.
Right. Last time we did a podcast, it was maybe a couple of years ago, you mentioned that you had your first ayahuasca ceremony.
Yep.
And since then you've experimented more with that. Has that caused any shift in you, or
definitely
anything that you want to?
Yeah,
you mentioned that we could talk about it, so I'm going in.
Yeah, man. Yeah, definitely. I've probably, I think the first time I went to Costa Rica and did the Rhythmia, and then so that was the start. I did a week there, and then I've maybe done, I don't know, maybe 30 ceremonies. Maybe since then, but the biggest one was I went to Peru in the jungle for 3 weeks, about a year and about 14 or 15 months ago, and went up there by myself, away from the family, didn't leave the compound, and just was delved right into it. And so,
what did it look like where you were?
It was just it's called Kayashabo. It was a center, and it was just basically I was on a property, and I basically didn't leave a square radius of like 500 yards for 3 weeks, you know. And we did ceremonies on Monday, Tuesday. We had Wednesdays off, Thursday, Friday. Then we had the weekend off, and we did that 3 weeks in a row. And yeah, look, it was maybe one of the toughest things I've ever done in my life. Speaking of mentally challenging. It was you learn a lot about yourself. You and the same thing with ayahuasca is you can you can dive in as much as you want, or you can sort of beat around the edges a little bit as well. But I went in pretty deep up there. I'd gotten.
I can say one thing for sure: you go in pretty deep with whatever you do.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And that's probably part of the reason I was up there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But
The irony.
if I'm being honest, I had made some bad decisions just on a lot of different levels. At that time, I'd sort of been getting depressed a little bit. Like for no reason I could point my finger at the time. Just some stupid like stuff. I think we was talking about tonight. Like I was with Cassie. I was saying like it was just, I was making rash decisions like on just swell chases and going places where I didn't necessarily need to go, and then just it was just weird. I was just being immature and a fucking idiot. So, and it was bothering me, and then I was getting depressed after swell chases. But the highs and lows of what we do is sort of like unappreciated, I think.
For sure.
It's we go through the crazy high of doing something so crazy and potentially getting the wave of your life, and adrenaline spikes, everything's so heightened, and then and then that come down afterwards is for me can be really bad. I can sort of like I can go into a bad place, and then so I was aware of it, and I and if I'm being truthfully honest, like Cassie.
There's your wife.
My wife had just said, hey, like, you got to get your shit together. You know what I mean? Like, just for the kids, for me, and for us, for just your family, and sort of gave me an ultimatum, to be honest. And she's like, but God bless her, like, it wasn't an ultimatum of like, she's like, why don't you go to the jungle? And why don't you, because we've both been experimenting with plant medicines for years, and she's like, go up, to, speak to, we become friends with the shamans. Becky's one of the wives of the shamans, and she's like, call Becky, see if she can get you up into Peru, and go up there and go work on yourself, So I did.
It's cool that you had that amount of time. For people who don't know, the way that psychedelics like ayahuasca work on the brain is they induce neuroplasticity. So humans are the only animal that have neuroplasticity across our entire lifespan, meaning that the structure of our brains can physically change and continue to change throughout an entire lifetime. But the more we think certain thoughts, the more grooved certain neural pathways become, and that can create thought patterns that become very difficult to get out of. So the power of psychedelics, when taken in responsible settings, is they can induce that neuroplasticity, and the analogy is like it's a fresh layer of powder on the mountain, and it gives you a chance to ski a new line down.
Yeah.
The mistake that a lot of people make with psychedelics is they think that one session is going to cure them, and they don't do that work afterwards, because you still have this period, it's kind of like shoulder surgery, right? Where you need to then do that kind of mental rehab for the days and weeks after the session to really derive all the benefits out of it. So
integration
exactly.
after coming out is really important. And it was it was awesome, but it was brutal.
It's brutal.
It was brutal, dude.
Ayahuasca should not be taken lightly.
No, it's incredible. I mean, it's not for everyone, but I would I would encourage everyone to look into it and give it a go once in their life. You know, it's eye opening. it's really hard to explain to people that probably haven't maybe studied a little bit about it or understand it. But I mean, it's
Yeah, the
crazy.
one thing I'll say is if you decide to do psychedelics, carve out a block of time before and after, so that you're not just going straight from work and then back into work.
Yeah, no, you need to be mentally prepared going in, and not only that, the diet going into ayahuasca. You know, for people like I don't smoke weed or anything, but you gotta get off anyone that's on medication. Marijuana, you've got to get off that. Off salt and sugar.
Yep.
Your diet's got to be super clean, and so there's a lot of pre-work that needs to be done to go in and get the most out of it. Yeah, I had some incredible experiences up there, Kyle. Like, I mean, you know, some of the stories people would think I'm crazy, you know, but I mean, I had some really, really eye-opening experiences, and not just from the stuff that I wanted to work on when I went up there, stuff that you don't know that you need to be working on, the works on. You know, I went back to my childhood a little bit. You know, me and my brother don't have the greatest relationship right now, and I had a lot of information about that as well. And then I had a lot of information about just, you know, going back to when you're talking about the ego and the racing and stuff. Like, I had a really big affirmation and stuff about that this next part of my life is not about me, because it's a lot of like who I am and with where our family's at, and with my wife, she's taken a back seat to who I've been and what I've done and what I've achieved and all that. And what I really saw was that I want to give her that opportunity that I've had to do what she wants to do, to you know, now that our kids are getting a bit older, that she can, you know, she does these great cacao ceremonies and women's circles, and she's really good at it.
Yeah.
And
here on the North Shore.
Here on the North Shore.
And where can people get involved if they're...
God,
maybe just reach out to you.
She doesn't do social media.
Oh, yeah. Reach out to you
but,
first.
she you know, and the women come up, like, you know, every Saturday I take my kids and go away, and she does them in her house, and when I come back, all the women are walking out crying, and they're like, Jamie, thank you for letting us do it at your house. And it's just, she's doing a great thing. The women around, the local girls that come, the ladies come, they just are so thankful that she's doing it, you know. And so I want to, getting back to that, like, you know, when I was, you know, in the journey, like, I saw a lot of that. Not that I'm just gonna stop doing everything that I do, but it's you know, I'm very happy to start to be able to transition out of it all being about me, and you know, changing it to be like to letting her to have her time to do what she needs to do. So there's a lot of really amazing things that can come out of it, you know. And I got a ton out of it, but again, that lasts for a week, and you know, those feelings start to fade away, and you've got to those intentions need to be reset, and you need to follow up with them. And you know, I just did another couple of ceremonies a few months ago, you know, so that was able to reset again. So yeah, it's dude, it's a crazy journey. It's
yeah, it takes a lot of I agree with you. Like, you can talk to God, and they'll and he or she or it'll tell you what to do, but then that message can fade in the weeks to come, and it's, I think, really important, if you do want to take it seriously, to incorporate those lessons into habits.
Yeah.
And make it part of your daily thing.
Yeah, it's definitely, it's like trying to go to, you know, stretching and going to yoga.
Yeah.
You know, if you stop doing it, you go back to, it's like any sort of sport or training or anything that you want to be better at. If you stop, then you regress.
Right.
And you know, but if you're consistent at it, you're going to consistently get better and master it and understand it more. And that's where I'm at. You know, to me, honestly, I feel like it's plant medicine, and whether it's, you know, psychedelics in whatever form that may be, and microdosing or whatever that is. I think that I think it's a lifelong journey.
Yeah.
Like I don't think, you know, for me, I know like the ayahuasca is not gonna heal me of all my problems or all my issues. It might help, and it will help, and if I'm consistent with it and I take it seriously, and I want to be, you know, I just want to be a better dad, a better friend, a better husband, a better person. Like that's what it is. It's, you know, like I think we can all agree that we all have our issues. We all have our problems, whatever it may be, you know, and you know, like we all have, you know, they say everything stems from your childhood, you know. You know, I had a great childhood. My parents were freaking amazing, but there's stuff down there that I don't remember much of my childhood, and I can't tell you why. Like I just don't have a lot of memories about growing up, and I'd like to remember.
Right.
I'd like to go back and untap that, and I know that you can do that with the ayahuasca and the plant medicines, you know. So it's a cool journey, and my wife is she's into it. We're on the same page.
That's so great.
We're eventually going to probably do some sessions together, you know, and she, you know, she loves working with cacao and doing her ceremonies and women's circles, and it's good, man. I see the good in it, and it's good people that are doing these things, and so it's a wild ride, man. Don't get me wrong. I've seen shit that if my general friends that know me would hear me talk about, and I'm not going to talk about it on here because you think I'm crazy, but you know, they would just look at me going, Are you okay, Jamie? Are you sure you're okay?
So did that this kind of new perspective shift your approach at all this winter, which was arguably the best winter in big wave surfing history, for Mavericks?
Funnily enough, I was and I didn't know it at the time, but I had that really bad wipeout at Jaws in the contest.
Let's talk about that first.
So that was was that first heat of the day? First heat of the day, big Jaws.
Was this 2019?
Yeah, so we didn't do it last year, the year before, and then I sort of just felt like a human buoy getting paddled around. I'm so bad in surfing heats, and all of a sudden everyone's got waves. I don't have waves. It's getting towards half the heat's over, and big one comes, and I was in a good spot. I was committed, and things scooped out, and I literally just free fell in the worst spot at Jaws, like deep, right on the button. Went sucked over and down, pinned on the bottom, got knocked out underwater.
You got knocked out underwater.
Got knocked out, and had a stinger in my shoulder, on my neck. I was like woke. It was, you know, when I say knocked out, it was like a flash, like it was like a impact, and then all of a sudden, on the bottom, pinned on the bottom, and then I came up, and I was completely out of it. I went and got another board, paddled back out, took another wave, and just fell from just being out of it. Took another big wave, and then I just went out and sat out in the channel basically and didn't get involved. And then that year was that was it for big waves. I didn't really get a chance to get back out there and get the jitters out, you know, and sat on that for a year.
That's the worst.
Yeah, sat on it for a year, and then the first swell at Jaws came this year, and went over with Tom Lowe, Luke. I think Luca came over, Jojo, and
That was early this past
It
winter.
was sort of really the only paddle day we had, to be honest. Yeah, it was early, and I was sitting on the boat. Those guys had paddled out. I was doing some stuff for Surfline, was sort of just cruising, taking my time, and finally sort of paddled out and was more nervous than normal, and just sort of paddling out going, shit, man, like, I don't know if I want to do this. Like, I was like, I'm not really psyched right now, you know, like I was a little scared, and I guess for me, I haven't felt that way. You know, I'm usually pretty confident and pretty comfortable and pretty into it, wanting to get out there, but it was just a really different feeling. And at the time, at that time, I wasn't really piecing it together with the wipeout, and you know, I couldn't really work it out. But I went out, I picked off 2 really good waves, nothing crazy, made the waves, came in, was like, I'll take that, put them in the memory bank, felt good, built a little confidence, and then we that swell went, you know, we chased the Mavericks, went over there, same thing, got a couple of waves, nothing spectacular, but enough, didn't fall, didn't wipe out, was building some confidence, and it was just meant to be like one of those typical Hawaii Mavericks, you know, combo, fly home. And then all of a sudden, that swell looked on the horizon for Mavs, and that the first December day, and so went back out the big evening when the Forerunners was filling in. It was like, I think it was like 10 at 24 or something, and I picked off a wave that evening, and rolled into that next day, towed Luca in the morning into that big wave, and sort of was finding a little mojo, went out, got a decent sized wave in the morning and was feeling it. And then I got a real big one and actually ate it. But that was the moment I realized that I hadn't wiped out since that wipeout. And I think subconsciously I didn't know if I could wipe out again. I was scared of wiping out. And when I came up, I had this sense of relief that I was like, oh man, I can handle a wipeout, you know? And it was weird because I'd never sort of been in that headspace before of, being scared and not knowing if I wanted to do it or what, you know, if I could do it. And, that was sort of a big shift for me. And then, you know, rolling into the January couple weeks.
That was the shift, dude. It's so important. It's such an important aspect of big wave surfing to talk about, because if you end a season on a bad wipeout, it can fuck with your head for a really long time.
Yeah.
And I think it's the same with a lot of different sports. Like you want to end on a good one, but with big wave surfing, it's that feeling is just magnified so much. And to be able to have a bad wipeout and come up with it with confidence is, I think, one of the most confidence building things that can happen. Yeah.
You get to stew in it for a year. Like,
right.
unless you're sort of, you know, traveling through the year and, you know, you get to go to, you know, South Africa, or you're down in Australia and you're getting waves and you're sort of able to shake it off. But, you know, I just sat here in the summer and just had to like sort of sit on it, you know, it was the first time I really, I started to doubt myself, to be honest with you. I was like, I that first paddle out the jaws in the lineup, I was like, oh my God, is
this over?
Is this it? Like,
wow.
Is this it? You know, I was like, I literally didn't want to be there,
right,
as I was paddling out.
Well, some people, you know, they step back from big wave surfing. It's that point is always interesting for me to ask people about, like when they step back from big wave surfing. And I've seen it with some people where they have a really bad wipeout and they decide that it's just not worth it to them anymore. And hey, hats off. Like there's there's no shame in that, right? If you decide that you don't want to do that anymore. Other people, they kind of step back more and more slowly. But that's it happens to everyone.
Yeah.
At some point, it's going to happen to everyone. So figuring out how you want to exit is, it's just interesting to me. I haven't figured it out, or I haven't really thought about that much.
Yeah, I mean, I'm 44. I've got family and this and that, but I think more than anything, I just like this cycle of that last 18 months from like that moment of eating it at Jaws to coming up from the Wipeout Mavericks. It just reiterated the fact that like how much I do still want to do it, and how much I love to do it, and you know, and maybe how lucky I have been to just be able to mow through like other wipeouts, because I've had like wipeouts sort of as bad, you know, but maybe the timing, you know, timing's everything and stuff like that. But you know, it just reiterated the fact that I just I love being in heavy water. I love seeing my friends out there. I love being in that energy with all the crew, with the guys and the girls, and does it mean I have to get 8 waves to be happy? No. I think that, to me, the biggest shift for me now has been the ego for me doesn't necessarily, I don't have to go out and try and get the gnarliest or biggest wave, or have to get 6 or 7 waves or 8 waves or to make it happy. Like for me, being out there and being a part of it, and to try and help promote big wave surfing as well, and then to get a couple along the way, that makes me happy.
Yeah.
You know, and that's not to say that, you know, this year it's a bummer because like I never got in that mindset of really like wanting to go out there and like really push it, but I was still there and I was still putting myself in positions to get pretty big ones.
For sure. Well, it's fun. I think that, you know, big wave surfing from the outside is so unnuanced, because really what the public sees is the wave of the day and the wipeout of the day, and then maybe someone who gets the second place wave of the day, right? So it's like every session is like Kai Lenny, Peter Mel, Kai Lenny, Peter Mel, and like everyone else gets waves, but what you don't see is that internal dialogue that's going through everyone's mind out there. And it could be someone who is newer to big wave surfing and they catch a medium-sized wave, but it's the fucking wave of their life.
Yeah.
And Surfline's not reporting that, right? Like no one's, because you can't, right? But it needs to be an internal pursuit, and it can't be about the public recognition, because that shit is just so fleeting. No one remembers the wave of the day from 5 years ago, and no one's going to remember it from this last winter pretty soon. So you just need to make it a more and more internal pursuit.
And it's in the moment. It's like we were talking about the other night at the barbecue. It's like going to the OPL, like after, and everyone's there, and the energy and the vibe is just electric.
It's electric.
And it's you know, and like you say, everyone there has their story. Like whether it's a wipeout or, you know, their buddy getting a wave or them getting their wave of their life.
Yeah.
And what, like you say, whatever it may be, like for Twiggy to go and get his wave of his life, it's going to have to be crazy gnarly. But for, you know, Mr. Joe Blow that's, you know, been surfing Blacks or Sunset Beach and decides he wants to step his game up, and he went and got, you know, an 18-footer on the bowl. Yeah. He's pumped right now. Pumped. He's super pumped, and it's all relevant, you know, and I think that and yeah, the stories to be told and the characters in Big Wave is just like it's untold, you know, and like in every session, the battle within to get your wave or push yourself, what's going on in your head to get the wave that you're looking for. No one knows that, but it's funny because we spoke about this, but I saw you on that big day and we were sitting in the sauna the other night and we were talking about it, and I said, I saw a look in Kyle's eye. I said, I saw a look in your eyes that day where I hadn't seen that look. And it wasn't until I heard the total story about your morning of what had happened. You the jet ski, the trailer, you couldn't get out there, Chachi, like leaving, and just a full debacle before you even got in the water. And I hadn't seen all that, but when I saw you, I'm like, fuck, like Kyle looks, I don't know if he's pissed off or he's fired up to get the wave of like his life, but something's up with him right now. And I was actually on the boat and I saw you paddle for that wave and you pack that thing. I'm like, well, I understand where his head was at, because like, and still at that stage, I hadn't heard what had gone on. But then when I put it all together, I know exactly what you were thinking, your mindset, everything. I knew exactly what was going on in your mind to get to what you did.
Right.
You know, it was just,
Totally.
I just knew, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The pieces for me fell like together in a puzzle, like so easily when I heard it all. I was just like,
Yeah.
but yeah, you know, I mean, I'd like to hear that from you too. Because like you, it's one of those things where everything goes wrong and it's like, and you get out there and you just like, well, you know what? You get in the mindset of like, I'm going for it right now.
Yeah. You got, and so I had a fucked morning of driving my RV into a ditch and our jet ski breaking, and then having to, you know, paddle out from the beach after this whole like 2-hour debacle late to the session, you know, so you're like, I'm fucking blowing it. And then I remember being on the beach and Taylor Paul coming in, he's a really good surfer at Mavericks, and he's like, it's really fucking big out there. And you could see just across the whole horizon.
But
it was
perfect.
Big and perfect. And for me, a lot, like, I think I don't really have... I know some people who are big wave surfers who just have that one gear where, like, on land, off land, they're just fired up, psyched all the time. I don't feel that. I feel like I have something where I kind of click into it, and I need to consciously do that from the beach. So I'll often do a kind of like, okay, I'm gonna go in the surf some heavy water now.
Yeah.
And all right, like now let's click into that gear, which I consciously did. And I feel like because my morning was so fucked, I had to over crank. Like I couldn't just be like, all right, well, I'm just gonna see how it goes. I'm like, no, I'm fucking gonna go get a bomb right now. Like I'm not going to let the day beat me. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, that was the best Mavericks I had ever seen, as far as the opportunity to sit outside the bowl and paddle into the biggest wave of your life. And I feel a real special connection with that place. I've just always felt like that wave, like it's so condensed in the way that if you can figure out where to sit, like there's a real like energy sometimes that I feel where I'm like, oh, this is going to be the spot right here. And it's really difficult to explain, but the way the reef is set up, you can catch a wave that's just so much bigger than anywhere else in that one spot. And this winter was really special for me because I got to have so many sessions out there that I felt like I got to know the wave better on like an energetic level, and I was able to go out and less just do what I often do, admittedly, where I like just look at the best guys and see like, all right, where are they sitting? I want to try and sit there, and I felt a lot more intuition a lot more intuition this whole season. And I was also, you know, I live in my RV, so I would drive up to Mavericks, and if there was like a 3-day window, I would go stay in the parking lot there and sleep there that night. And like after the sessions, I would journal about what I felt like I was doing wrong. And I had a really good Travis Reynolds board this winter as well. So I was just looking at it with, I think, more like curiosity and intuition than I have in past years. And I think that's partially due to how many sessions we were able to get out there. Yeah. Often when you're, you know, at Mavs, you get a couple sessions a year, and it's just like wipe, you know, dusting the cobwebs off and just trying to like get in that mindset. Whereas this winter, I felt like I was able to start surfing the wave.
Yeah, that was, I mean, hands down, I think even like when Grant Washburn says it's the best run of swell, and not just actually size, but conditions.
Yeah.
I mean, forget about, it was just pristine.
Yeah,
like pristine conditions nearly every swell. And yeah, I mean, I think you see it, you know, there's certain people that have connections with certain waves, and they just feel so comfortable at places. You know, it's like a Peter Mel at Mavericks, like that, you know. And you got like, you know, Kai or Ian and that at Jaws, where they just feel like they're surfing their local beach break.
Yeah.
And it's the gnarliest place in the world. And you can just definitely see certain people have certain intimate connections where, you know, like what Pete did this year, to like so nonchalant. And it's just that wave he got.
You were there.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it's just it's never gonna be. It's so that was so heavy. Like what he did, like it's just so underappreciated. Like the position he put himself in to do that. The day that he did it, there was like basically no one. It was like one of those days in between swells, like it was pumping, but there's like barely anyone taking photos or out in the channel.
Yeah, describe that day for me, because I missed that day.
It was a upcoming. It was what I can't remember what day it was, but it was basically that day was up. The swell was upcoming, like incoming, like it was going to be 20 feet, and then the next day was you could surf Maz, but then the day after that was going to be the January day, the whatever day, and so I'd gone out, and I remember it was me and Ryan Augenstein and maybe 2 other guys out, and it was like 15 to 18 feet west, point break, not even like offshore, just glass. Like I wasn't even like Mavericks. The color water was like Todos. It was bizarre. Like Fred was out taking photos. I'd got a ton of like epic waves. Pete had been out there earlier and had come in with John. I'd cross paths and he's like, I'm going to come back out. And so I actually took a wave where I was in super early and sort of pushed on, like backed out of like maybe trying to backdoor to get in the barrel. And I sort of like said, and I'd finished my session. I came in on the ski and I said to Pete, I said, could I pack that thing? Like I wouldn't have made it right. And he's like, probably not, but like you never know, you know what I mean? So I sort of wonder if like he was looking and saw some opportunities.
Right.
I don't even know. I'm not giving credit to me for him saying that he saw that, but
but it was one of those days where it was possible.
And then and we were chatting. He's like, I'm going to paddle out, and he jumped off his board. Son was on his ski. He paddled out, and that then, you know, this. I think it just in that moment the swell just got like gnarlier, you know, and I mean it must have been 15 minutes, dude. He paddled out and I think it was John that had said, he goes, oh, the condor, you know, like his son calling him, his dad the condor. Like I'm like, well, where is he? And Twiggy had just paddled out and And so I'm looking for where he is, and then I'm like, and I look, he's over near the left, like paddling in. I'm like, what the fuck? And
So deep.
yeah, and just seeing it from the channel, being there with John, and I jumped off the ski and paddled over to him, just freaking out, like. Because he just sort of like, he surfed it like a
6 foot
six
barrel.
foot day at backdoor, and it was so deep, dude. He like was totally gone, standing tall, and then the thing just like opened up again and just let him out, no chandelier, like completely open, and I was just in shock, but I was so freaked out. I fucking jumped on my board, paddled over to him, I crash tackled him off his board, was hugging him and just going, that was fucked up. And he's like looking at me, not saying it. I'm like, no, dude, that was fucked up. That was so fucked up. Like just into his face, and he's in. I think he was in shock, and we're in the water, and I was like, I said, dude, that was fucked up. And I just paddled off. Like I just paddled away, and he just sat there, and he just had his moment, and I get goosebumps thinking about it now. I'm just so stoked I was there because Pete's been such a mentor to me. Like he's been, apart from Dave Kalama, for paddling. Like we struck up a really good relationship paddling and for Jaws and surfing. But Pete, like, you know, Quicksilver, he was the first guy to ever take me out to Mavericks. We were doing a photo shoot for Quicksilver edition in San Francisco. Dave was there. Pete was there, and there was a swell that I saw. It was an early season, like September, October, and I asked the guys that were running the photo shoots, said, hey, can we go surf Mavericks? Bonga Perkins was with us. He paddled out in the longboard, and it was 2005, I think, something like that. And Pete lent me a board, and he took me out. It was a 15-foot northwest windy day, but he took me out for my first time, and he's just been such a fucking good person to me, you know, and like to look up to him and him to take me under his wing, and so for me to be able to be there, to see that, and to just like, it was just, I don't know, full circle for me, you know, like to just, I don't know, just to be there and be so stoked for him, and to be like just to be like, dude, that was so fucking crazy to see it from the channel and be next to his son and that whole thing. It was just a real special moment for me, you know, like, and the probably one of the best moments in the ocean I've ever had, you know, to just see that, you know, it was pretty full on. Yeah, man. And then 2 days later, he went out and had his son towing him into those giant waves, and he just and I said to him, I said, dude, like, you're just on a heater this year, you know, like it's not just, and I wasn't even trying to be funny. I'm like, there's something going on this year, like that's, you know, and he goes, Jamie, I'm content. He goes, you know, he's Quicksilver didn't sponsor him anymore. He's working at the family at Freeline. He's like, John stepped it up. Like, John wants to surf Mavericks, so wants to be out there. He's committed for his son, and he just had, I mean, it's 30 years of a love, devotion to a place that just basically just gave back to him in intent and just said, hey, here it is. The only negative I can say from the whole thing is that he's going to have a hard time ever getting a better wave in his life. He may have peaked, but what better time at 51 or 50 to peak than you know,
getting a 50-foot barrel.
Yeah, in front of your son, you know.
That is so cool, man.
You know, because I thought he had his moment, the December swell, when he really was one of the MVPs anyway, and John was out as well, and Anthony.
Yeah, I had Pete on the podcast after he got that crazy one in December.
Yeah,
and I was like, that was the wave of his life, and he was talking about it and then the podcast came out, and then he got the barrel.
The barrel, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So just so many memories, and I mean, just an amazing. I saw so many friends get the waves of their lives up to this time, you know, and what is, I think, is possible from 2000. You know, we all been waiting for a 2010 contest day to come, and to get multiple opportunities of that magnitude. I think you see how the level gets risen, you know, when you get those opportunities. Like, you know, now we sit and wait again, and do we get an opportunity on the outer ledge again, or do we wait another 5 years?
Yeah.
That's the sort of the crazy thing about big wave surfing is you progress so much, like the El Nino at Jaws in 2015, you progress so much and then it goes stagnant. It's not like a half pipe or a giant ramp where you're progressing and you're able to practice every day. We just don't get that opportunity, and I think that's you got to take those moments. Like this year, I was so glad that I was able to stay for those weeks at a time and just get those sessions in, because who knows, you know, maybe that'll be the best run of Mavericks that I'll see in my surfing life when I'm able to surf at that level, you know?
Yeah.
So
it's a freaking amazing community. I always say, like, one of my favorite things about the whole thing is just the community, and the fact that, you know, I get to come to the North Shore and crash at your house when we get to talk story for a bit is just one of my favorite things.
Yeah, and we were talking about community the other night, and it is, and Big Wave is there is a special community. I don't know if it's something about near-death experience and you know, coming together as one and looking after each other, and you know, I know that everyone gets on pretty well, but you know, there's obviously people that you don't necessarily like a whole bunch sometimes too, but when you're in that moment, we're all out there together. Everyone wants to see everyone get home safe, you know, and you also want to see your friends get big waves and be stoked. And I think that there's something about that, like, you know, and after the fact, everyone sharing that energy with each other and sharing that stoke. There's not too many things that I've been involved in that bring that feeling of sense of community. And
it goes back to what we were saying at the beginning about whether it's endurance sports or big wave surfing. I think that you gain a real the conversation in your mind becomes very personal, and being able to spend time with other people who yearn to bring themselves to that space and have those kinds of conversations with themselves in really intense situations in the water is it's really cool, because you can't always find that common ground with people, you know. It's an intense bunch of weirdos.
Yeah.
And it's really fun to be able to share that with a community.
Yeah, and it's cool to see, because you start to you know, like for me, being able to read you in that lineup that day, and you start to get to know people and their personalities, and you know, like, what type of waves they generally like, and what's, like, you see someone go to a certain place on the reef and you're like, fuck, okay, like he's feeling it today. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you know when someone's out of their comfort zone, like, you know, and you see, like even like a Taylor Paul, like, great surfer, charges, you know, and even his, like, he'll go, man, I'm just trying to get the corners here and there. But then, like, I've seen that guy huck himself over some really, like, impressive waves this year, you know, and you know that he's getting himself out of that comfort zone. And to see people do that, it's really inspiring, you know, and because to put yourself out there and to really to be scared, but to go out there and put yourself in that situation under your own will and wanting to do that takes a lot of courage. And for me, I love to see the young kids, you know, especially there's a lot of young kids at Mavericks, the locals kids that now they're starting to push to the left and all that. And it's really cool to see humans in the world we live in, this crazy world we live in right now, is to be able to go out and challenge themselves and not just physically but mentally. And I think it's good for you, good for the soul, good for everyone.
Indeed. Well, man, you're just the best. Where can people get in touch with you?
I sort of just do the Instagram thing. Yeah,
right.
I'm not really
We'll link to it below.
big on anything else, but yeah, Jamie_Mitcho, and I'm trying to be better on it, but it is what it is.
It is what it is, and it's pretty good, especially after a cold plunge.
Yes, that's right. I'm still shivering the whole podcast.
Hey, it's Kyle again. Head over to trendswithbenefits.com and sign up for our newsletter to get weekly stories about psychedelics, adventure, well-being, and more. And if you dig this podcast, please leave a rating on Apple Podcasts. It takes less than 60 seconds and helps us book hard-to-get guests.